Okay, I was talking about Marilyn Manson on Cancel, which is a website I think most people here are familiar with. And like when I was first reading the site, I was like, it's a nice name. It's a nice thought, but it'll never happen. And now it seems like it actually is happening.
I agree. They were one of the first few resources I found. Maybe not initially when I started looking into everything, because I didn't want to have a sort of, well, how do I explain it? I did not want to hear what someone was telling me or their personal opinion. I wanted to figure things out for myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I felt like that was the best way to go,
Mm-hmm.
because I came into this, and I don't know if I ever told you, but I came into this already believing the accusations. Then when I watched the Johnny Depp trial, my wheels started turning, especially when they kept saying the name Marilyn Manson. And I'm also, in my early years in high school, I was a big fan. And then over the years, I kind of came
Mm-hmm.
back to being a fan since I think 2014 when the show Salem came on. I don't know if you're familiar, but
I've
his
heard the
song
name.
was the theme song to Salem.
Okay. You know what? That's funny you say that because okay, here's the thing. Like it was first Johnny and Amber, and that was going on while this was going on. And Amber was so unbelievable. When I first saw Evan Rachel Wood, I was like, oh yeah, maybe she's telling the truth and Amber's not, because not everybody could be a false accuser. And for like the first week, I was like, yeah, maybe. But then when I thought about it and I looked into it, and I got some facts and details. Then I remembered Marilyn Manson's always blamed for things my whole life. I was like, you know what? This sounds fake too.
This sort of sounds familiar to my progression, except for me, I had followed the Amber Heard stuff from the beginning, and that sounded very suspect that initially she started going to People magazine to have her story told
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
the police. And then she goes to the police, but then nothing really happens. Just a lot of those weird things. And I don't know if you know who Doug Stanhope is, the
Of
comedian.
course I know who Doug Dun. He
Okay.
actually responded to one of my tweets.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in the beginning, I don't know if you know, but he had wrote kind of an article of sorts defending
Yep.
Johnny Depp very early
Mhm.
on, and he got a lot of flack for that. And I
Mhm.
remember reading that when it came out. And to me, it seemed like, okay, there's something going on here. It doesn't make sense. I was around when she had the bruise on her face the one day, and
Mhm.
then it was gone the next. So it's interesting to me from that sort of standpoint to then
Mhm.
follow Evan Rachel Wood's progression, because I was following it when she was making these pseudo allegations without naming anyone. And there was
Mhm.
conversation going on back then. People believed it could be Marilyn Manson, but there was kind of like, well, could be Jamie Bell. I don't really know. It just seems a little sus. But then when multiple women came out, that was kind of the thing to me that said, well, this could be more believable then. But as you know, more people that make excuse me, sorry, the more that come forward and make allegations, there is more of a likelihood for evidence.
That's what
And
I've been saying for years. Yeah.
Right. And Evan Rachel Wood and Esme Bianco literally testified in Congress that they had said evidence. But this is a second documentary that you have in front of you that she's making new allegations at.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me. Like, she had an opportunity. There's an investigation. Why isn't he cleared? Or at least if they found something, which I doubt they did, they would have said so by now.
Right. Pretty much everything in life revolves around mathematics and numbers. Some people don't like that, but it's true. And like if there was only 3 women that came out and had no evidence, that would be more believable than what's the number now? Like they say 20 or whatever the hell it is.
Well, it depends on where you get your information. If you read one news article from 2021, it'll say a dozen, another will say 16. If you follow the hate pages, they'll say 50 to 80. I mean,
Yeah.
it changes depending on where you get your information. So even the media doesn't have an accurate reflection of what that number
Right.
is.
Right. Well, if you take it to an extreme and you say it's 10,000, how could that possibly be? That would be like unbelievable because then it would just be people repeating things,
Right.
just like parrots down the line. So, like, the more you have, the less sense it makes. It's just simple mathematics.
Right, and that makes sense. And when I watched the Depp trial, it actually was that trial that made me think about things, because Marilyn Manson wasn't there, but they kept talking about him and his
Mhm.
exchanges with Johnny Depp.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
it made me realize that just saying his name evoked an emotional response in people, and they didn't even have to know the facts. He wasn't there
Right.
defending Johnny
Right.
Depp.
Right.
And I was like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I should look into this a little bit more, because really, for me, that was the only person I've ever actively said, I'm not going to listen to this person's music. I'm not going to support someone, because I was, at that point, a fan. And it was surprising to hear these allegations. But then
Mhm.
once you critically think about things, you read court documents, and I went through it for a good solid 2 months before I decided to become the Manson Cases. There was just enough out there that people were not asking these questions, at least not journalists or the media. And a little subset of group, I would say, that is now growing, talking about Marilyn Manson and his innocence.
Mhm.
So
So as far as like his like uncancellation, like, do you think like this tour marks him moving on to more things and more, let's just say, like companies and managers and things being open to working with him?
I believe so. And Marilyn Manson started, as you know, as a shock rocker, a musician. Then he became an actor, and then he became an artist. All of these things, all of these careers were then canceled for him. And even his wife faced cancellation based on allegations by Evan Rachel Wood at that time.
Mhm.
So to me, it signals that he is moving on with his life
Mhm.
despite the continued allegations. I mean, you saw there is that new documentary out in Canada right now. They still did a tour, they're still releasing music. I hear there's an album coming from what it sounds like, from what Eddie Trunk had said nearly a year ago. So they're choosing to move on despite all of this, knowing that there was a documentary, knowing they're going through lawsuits, and there's still there is still his lawsuit against Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore, even though it's still kind of slow moving with it going on in appeal.
Mhm.
So I think, yes, this is going to open a lot of opportunity for him. And if anything, we can see that it's working for him. He has sold
Right.
out shows in Europe. He's had headline shows in the US that have sold out. His
Mhm.
music, 2 singles so far, have reached number 1 or 2 on the hard rock singles chart.
Good.
So I think this is going to work out for him in a way that I think no one really anticipated, because when you see people canceled, or celebrities, I should say, canceled, you never really know how they are going to come back. And we're starting to
Mhm.
see, I think, a shift, not since Johnny Depp in a way, but I think he was the start of that, where we're slowly moving towards this cultural shift again of the pendulum swinging the other way.
Right. I
And
I
I
think
think
so
he's
too.
helping with
Hopefully
that.
we will.
Yeah. If you hear a dog in the background, I didn't realize I didn't put the gate up.
That's okay. I'll forgive your dog, whatever it is.
It's a dot, it was called a Dachshund. So
Well, I mean, like, I think someone mentioned this before, but it seems like there's not that many people listening to Evan Rachel Wood anymore.
I tend to agree. I mean, I only started back around July 2022, and I had started looking into it on April 30th of 2022. And there was a lot of support when I went on social media for Evan Rachel Wood, kind of in line with Amber Heard, that this is coming next for Evan Rachel Wood. We've seen how this happened for Amber Heard, kind of the scenario of social media and how they are
Mhm.
twisting that to say that the court was done somehow on TikTok and YouTube. But I agree. I noticed there is a shift. I notice more people are asking questions. I notice more people are having a lot more questions in the near, what is it going to be, 4 years in February when these allegations came out, and nearly 4 years of an investigation that has yet to close. I
Mhm.
think more are just asking questions and realizing, especially since Ashley Morgan Smith line recanted, and when Chloe Black, who was Jane Doe, who settled last September, the court documents from that, the witness list, the exhibits, and everything spell a different story, but that's not how it's reported. There is definitely a shift happening.
Good. That sounds good. I'm happy to hear it. I mean,
Mhm.
I've I'm not gonna say I've been a fan of, I mean, Johnny or Marilyn Manson, like, in my past, let's just say casual fan, if that makes sense to you. Like,
Yeah.
surface level. Like, "Oh, Depp's in this movie." Like, once I saw Donnie Brasco, I was like, "Wow, that's Johnny Depp?" I didn't even realize, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like as like a guy, I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but who likes guy shit. I didn't like Pirates and Edward Scissorhands. I was like, those are kind of fun but quirky movies. But when
Yeah.
I saw like Donnie Brasco, I was like, that is some badass shit, you know? Like
Believe it or
that
not,
guy's fucking great.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh my god, that was such a classic. And then I didn't know it was Johnny. And then I saw the credits, I was like, "That was Johnny Depp?" And then from that minute, I was like, "Yeah, okay, now I'm a fan of this guy. That's fucking awesome, right?" And then I
Yeah.
like Transcendence, which, like, no one else likes, but I liked it. So, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's funny you call yourself a casual fan because I joke
Yeah.
that I consider myself a lazy Marilyn Manson fan. The
Mhm.
first concert I ever went to was just a month ago, but
Mhm.
I have owned his other CDs from the
Mhm.
early 2000s, even the ones from the 90s. In recent years, I started getting into the newer albums like The Pale Emperor,
Mhm.
but I'm not someone that kind of hovers around artists to know when they're going on tour. I want to
Sure, sure,
know,
sure.
you know what I mean? Like it's maybe the Spice Girls a little bit more because that was my thing as a kid, but even then, I still don't really follow what they're doing with any artist. It's just how I am.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's how I am
Yeah.
too. I mean, I'm not like some big music lover anymore. I've got all my stuff that I've loved my whole life, and, you know, it's not like all this great new stuff is going to come out to replace it. It's pretty much
Yeah.
set with my music, but you know, um, so what else like is going on as far as like the court stuff?
As far as court stuff, I think, let me think here. We just had the opening briefs filed by Marilyn Manson's attorney not too long ago. I think at the very end of August, and I put that on my Substack if anyone wants to read it. It's
If you want
92
to drop a link or
pages.
something, feel free.